What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to start up a new series here on the channel. We're going to build out a Rick and Morty app. If you're not familiar, Rick and Morty is a pretty popular show. Admittedly, I haven't actually seen a whole lot of it, but there is this really nifty API that's available where you can actually go ahead and get the characters from the show, locations, you can also get all the episodes, and it's pretty robust. So I wanted to make a series going through this. We're going to learn along the way a variety of concepts. We're going to look at both UIKit and Swift UI before everyone complains in the comments. And today we're going to get started on it. I don't know how many videos it's going to be, but we're going to enjoy it together along the way. So before we jump into things, drop a like down below, comment for that algorithm. Let's go ahead and open up Xcode, and we're going to start by creating a new project. I want to say this is Xcode 14.1, and we're going to create a new project here and jump right in. So what we're going to stick with is a app template under iOS. I'm going to go ahead and call this Rick and Morty. Let's fix my caps there. And we're going to stick with storyboard. We're going to do everything programmatic, either Swift UI or UIKit, but we are going to stick with storyboard to create the project. Let's go ahead and save it wherever you'd like. I'll toss it onto my desktop. And the first thing I'll do here is actually full screen Xcode, and we're going to give this a run in our 14 Pro simulator. Should see it pop up here momentarily. And thereafter, we'll actually jump into writing code. Don't know why this looks strange. There we go. And we'll jump into it. So once we see our app, which we do, plain empty app there, we're going to first start by thinking about what this app is going to look like and looking at this API very briefly. So this is yelling at me because I stopped the app over here, which is okay. So essentially what we want to do is we're going to have an app with 3 tabs at the bottom, one for characters, one for locations, and one for episodes. We're going to also build out unlimited scrolling, so infinite scroll if we have more data, which, spoiler, we will. We'll be able to click into characters, locations, and episodes and get more details about them. And we're also going to build in a search/filtering API. And maybe towards the end of this series, what we'll also look at is submitting this app to the App Store. No way Apple approves this, but we'll go through the motions of that to kind of learn along the way. So that all being said, in this first video, what I'm going to do is we're going to delete the storyboard here, and we are going to set up our application structure on the left-hand side to actually start building this in an organized way. So let me just go ahead and set a background color in here, just so we know we can see it, and then we'll start setting things up. I should also preface by saying that this is not a series for absolute beginners. You're more than welcome to follow along the way. I will do my best to explain things, but certainly having some working knowledge of iOS is helpful. I'm not going to say required, but it is helpful. So we're going to delete this main storyboard file here since we're going to do everything programmatically. But if you go ahead and build and run your app right now, it's going to crash. The reason it's going to crash is if we go to our main project here and the info tab up here, we're actually referencing that main storyboard file in 2 places. The first one is right here, which is literally main storyboard file base name. Go ahead and hit backspace and delete that. And then in application scene manifest, if you open this up all the way down, you'll see that there is a reference to main in here as well. Select it and delete it. And now when we run our app, we're not going to crash. Let's see if we crash. We shouldn't crash, but we won't see anything. And the reason we don't see anything is this view controller is kind of orphaned right now. It doesn't actually know that it needs to be shown, and we don't even have a window yet. So we're going to jump into the scene delegate file here, and we're going to implement this first function. And this is where we want to create a window and attach it to our primary view controller. So here we're going to say window scene. We're going to say that let window is going to be our window, and we're going to say create it with a window scene like so. We're going to want to retain this window at the bottom. We're going to say window make key and visible, and then we also want to tell the window what the root view controller is, and essentially what screen should I show at startup. Not the splash screen, but the actual main app screen. So we're going to call this a view controller, and we'll create it up here. So we'll say let VC will be the one and only view controller file we have here. If we command click into it and hit jump to definition, you'll see it comes back to this guy. So I'm going to hit pause and rerun our app, and you'll see that we now see what we had in the beginning with our red screen. So cool, it looks like we got rid of the storyboard and we're good to dive in. Now, what I'm going to do is do some organizational work. So we're going to set up some folders. We're going to need to build out an API client. We're going to build this in a way that we can also open source it by the end of this series. So you'll see the proper way to write a library app. Maybe we'll publish it as a Swift package as well as a CocoaPod. So let's go ahead and make all these folders here. So on the left-hand side, we're going to create some standard folders. We're going to try our best to use the MVVM design pattern, otherwise known as model, view, view model. So to do that, we do need a couple of folders. So we're going to have our controllers. Every app needs some view controllers. We're going to have our data types, which will be otherwise known as models. We're going to want some views, and this will include both Swift UI as well as UIKit. And let's see what I'm missing here. We're going to need view models, which will basically be the glue between our model, view, as well as some business logic interaction for our controller. And what I like to do, and of course this is all subjective, is I like to have a managers folder. This is where we're going to stick our API client and maybe some other stuff. So let me actually call this, we'll call this API client. And let's actually create another folder called managers. This will be everything non-API related. And finally, we'll do a final folder called resources. So resources will basically include like anything that doesn't fall into those other folders. So things like maybe scene delegate and app delegate, one could go ahead and toss into resources, which I'll actually do right now. The asset catalog and launch image, they're kind of resources, so we'll pop them into here as well. And then the view controller, obviously controller, and I will leave the info plist as is. Let's go ahead and build and run, make sure moving stuff around didn't actually break anything. So cool, it did not, which is good sign. Let's now actually think about what files we'll need for the rest of our app. So we're not going to dive too deep into the API documentation today, but if we do click on docs, on the left, you'll see here that we do have some dedicated sections for the character endpoint, for the location endpoint, the episode endpoint, and then there are some libraries here as well. You'll actually see there's a Swift library as well, but that's no fun to use someone else's written code. We're going to learn all of this together. So this all being said, one thing that we can infer is we're going to want a data type for character, location, and episode. So while we're not going to write anything into these, what I'll go ahead and do is in our models here, I will go ahead and say that we have a new Swift file, and I'm going to say this is location. And one good practice in building out any type of app is prefixing your files with some abbreviation of your app. So for example, in the Twitter app, maybe all the classes are prefixed TW, or maybe in the, some other app like YouTube, everything is YT. So I'm actually going to call this RM location, Rick and Morty location, and we're going to try to keep this naming convention going throughout the application. So here we have the location. Now we know we also get characters back, so I'm going to create RM character, which is going to represent a single character, and we'll also go ahead and create a RM episode. Cool. Okay, so now that we've got this, let's take a look at our simulator here and let's rehash what I described earlier. We're going to have tabs at the bottom, one for characters, one for locations, one for episodes. Maybe we'll have a fourth tab as well for settings, so we know we want at least 4 controllers for that. On top of that, we're going to want the entire housing controller, which will be a tab bar controller. So let's actually go ahead and change all this stuff up. So we have this file here called view controller. I'm going to call it RM tab view controller, and I'm going to go ahead and change it here. We're going to say RM tab view controller, and instead of inheriting from UI view controller, we're going to inherit from UI tab bar controller. Let's go ahead and do that. UI, not table view, there should be a tab controller is what I'm looking for, tab bar controller. Okay. And we can still leave view did load since this does indeed exist for all the subclasses of a view controller. Now let's go ahead and create some more folders inside of here. So maybe I'll create a core subfolder, and this is going to contain the controller files for our particular core navigation, right? So once again, character, location, and episodes, and settings. So let's go ahead, and we already got that tab bar controller. Let's go ahead and create a new file. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class, and it's going to inherit from UI view controller. And we're going to do RM character view controller. like so. We'll go ahead and create it. And we're gonna want 3 more of these. Let's do it again. RM location view controller, we'll save it. Once more, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna do RM episode view controller. All right, and then the final one, which I won't forget this time, will be a RM settings view controller. All right, good stuff. So we've got our 4 controllers here for our tabs and then our tab bar controller. Now, if you try to build, you should get an error. And the reason we're getting an error is because we renamed this from view controller to our RM tab view controller. And let me actually change this to just be tab bar controller, like so. And then I'll also change the file name for consistency's sake. So let's jump into our scene delegate, which I think I threw into resources. And let's actually change this to be the appropriate new name. All right, looking good. Let me go ahead and build and run, and let's see if our app is actually launching. So it is indeed launching. We have a red background. We also now have a tab bar at the bottom. The last thing we'll do in this video, very basic setup, will be to just attach all 4 of these controllers to our tab bar. And it's fairly simple to do that. We're gonna do it in our tab bar controller. I am also going to make each of these controllers a final class, implying that it cannot be subclassed. So if you're not familiar with inheritance, that's what we're doing here. We're going to make all of these final. And let's do this one here. And we'll do this one here. And then we also are not going to need this like commented out code. So let me just delete these from each of these. I kind of don't like the fact that the template gives this to you, but I guess it wouldn't be a template otherwise. So go figure. So we'll go ahead and jump into here. And what I'm going to do is we're going to create a function in here, and we're going to call it setup view controllers. We'll just say setup tabs to make it simpler. So we're just going to set up our tabs in here. We're also going to make this function private. So if you're not familiar, you can set things as private to this class, meaning that no other class can access it. You can make it public, or if you don't put anything, by default, it's just internal. So any other class across this module, in this case, just this app can access it. So we'll say setup tab here, and we'll keep that red background color, just call this function here. And inside of this, what we want to do is we want to basically create instances for all 4 of these controllers and just attach them to our tab bar controller. So we're going to say our character VC, aka character view controller, will be our RM character view controller. And what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this a total of 4 times. We'll change this next one here to be our locations. Next one to episode. I guess it should be plural, so we'll toss an S in there. And then finally to settings. And of course, don't forget to actually change the type here. So here we're going to have our location controller. This will be our episode controller. And this will be our settings controller. All right, looking good. So now we want to actually attach these on our tab bar view controller. So we're going to say set view controllers, which is a function available on the UI tab bar controller that we're inheriting from. And this takes a collection of view controllers. And we can also specify whether or not it should be animated. So we can specify all 4 of these directly, but what we also probably want is a nice title bar at the top, aka a navigation bar. And to get that functionality, we actually want to wrap each of these in a navigation controller. So what I'll do here is say nav1 will be UI navigation controller with a root controller, and this will be the character VC. We'll copy and paste this a total of 4 times. We'll go ahead and update this like so. And here we'll have location be the next one, episodes be the next one, and settings be the next one. We also want titles on all 4 of these. So let's go ahead and specify the title property, which is just a string. So we'll say characters. I will copy and paste this 3 more times, and just make sure you don't forget to update these. That's always the tricky thing with copy and pasting. Saves you time, and then you spend a bunch of time forgetting or thinking about what you forgot. So here, let's go ahead and update these locations. I'll also update this and be episodes. Make sure we spell that correctly. And settings. And then finally, in this array for set view controllers, we can do nav1, nav2, nav3, and nav4. So let's go ahead and give that a build and run. hit Command R on your keyboard if you're not familiar, and we should see our red background. We don't see the icons down here, but you can actually click it, and you can see we do have our 4 tabs. I am going to get rid of the red background color now because it's kind of annoying and not helping our case. And what I will actually do is, if we go into these controllers, we can actually move the title setup logic into there. So let me go ahead and we'll jump into here. And we'll do each of these one by one, and then I will wrap up the video so we don't get too long. So here we're gonna have characters, and I will actually copy and paste this. Let me just set a background color on it as well. We are going to support both light mode and dark mode, so we're saying system background here, which means, if the system's in light mode, show white, otherwise show black. One last thing I should call out, I keep saying last thing, but one more thing I'll call out is I'm going to debug everything along the way together in the videos. I'm not a fan of videos that just show everything scripted and put together. If I break something, if I need to fix something, we're going to do all of it together so you guys can actually see what it takes to build an app, as well as, solve a problem if you hit one. So we'll do locations there. And here we've got our episodes. So we'll do episodes. Alrighty. And finally, we have settings. And the reason I'm actually moving this logic is, if you run your app now, you'll see at the bottom that you should see, well, we don't actually see it yet, but you'll see that once we set up the tab bar items, these titles at the bottom will be here by default. So we're going to do 2 small tweaks and then wrap this video up. One, we're going to set up an icon for each of these tabs at the bottom, and we're going to make the title appear larger, which is kind of the more modern way of doing things. So what I'm going to do is, in an array, I'm just going to copy this. We're going to do a for nav in this collection. We're going to say nav.navigation bar. And there is an option on here for large title. So I think it is called prefers large titles. We're going to make that true. And the other thing we're going to go ahead and do is, if I'm not mistaken, each of these elements here, all of these base controllers, we need to say on the navigation item that the large title display mode will be either automatic. I think there's also an option for always. What we want is automatic. So let me go ahead and just copy and paste this. And we'll clean up all the code as we continue through this series, which I anticipate will actually be pretty long. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and give this a run, make sure our titles are large, which in fact they are. And finally, let's go ahead and do some nice images for our tabs. So what we want to do is, for each of these navigation controllers that I've got highlighted, we want to set a tab bar item, which is nothing more than a UI tab bar item that takes in a title, an image, and a tag. So the title's fairly straightforward. It's a string for that particular screen. The tag is just a number, and we'll do the image in a moment. The image is going to be an icon from Apple's built-in set of icons, but let me just copy and paste this a total of 4 times, update this here, update all these tags. We'll just do 2, 3, and 4, and let's just update the title. So we're going to say character. The next one is going to be locations. This should be plural. Next one will be episodes. And finally, this one here will be settings. If you go ahead and give this a run, you'll see once the app launches, we actually at the bottom have the tab bar labels showing instead of them being invisible from the beginning. Now we actually want to have icons. So there is a program called SF Symbols. It is available on Apple's websites. So I have the beta one here. This beta is actually kind of old, but if you just Google for SF Symbols, you'll find the latest one on Apple's website to download. So you can actually go ahead and search for images, and these are all baked into UIKit. So let's search for character and see what we get. So that's not exactly the character that we're looking for. We're kind of looking for like an alien or a person. I guess we can do this one for person. So what I'll go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and click this. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-C, which will copy the name of this person, of the icon, I should say, which is person in this case. And here we're going to say UI image, and we're going to use a system image with that particular name. And let me just go ahead and copy and paste this to all the images, and we will adjust them accordingly. So I happen to know that gear is one of the icons available. I want to say that a globe is also available, so we can use the globe for locations. So let's go ahead and change that one up here. And then episodes is kind of like a TV episode, so we can look up a TV. So let's see, TV. And we do in fact have a TV, so looking pretty good. I'll go ahead and toss that one here. And I think that's all the icons we're gonna need for the time being. So I'll come back to Xcode, stop our app, and just hit that play button to build and run again. And if you look at the bottom, we now have pretty nice looking icons. So that is where I'm gonna pause this series for this video. Basically, just to recap, we created a project. We set up some classes that we're going to need, particularly 3 models here. Organize the project a little bit on the left for our actual tree structure, our folders. And we also got tabs showing up. And if you missed how we did it, we got rid of the main storyboard. You can obviously rewind the video and kind of rewatch it and see if you found any issues along the way when you were implementing it. But that's all I've got for you guys today. So in the upcoming videos, we're going to look at the API, we're going to look at downloading images, caching, we might even go into testing and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that. If you're new here and haven't liked the video yet, make sure to drop a like before hitting that subscribe button, hit the bell icon to stay up to date on new videos, and comment if you've got any questions, or if no questions, comment for that YouTube algorithm. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.